WikiLeaks' record of opposition to Hillary Clinton. In the early parts of the 2016 election, before WikiLeaks had received hacked materials from the GRU, Assange expressed his opposition to Hillary Clinton's candidacy. He did so in private communications and in public announcements, and WikiLeaks took actions to insert itself into the U.S. 2016 elections by publishing a searchable archive of Clinton emails that it believed would encourage the submission of election-related leaks. As early as November 19, 2015, in a Twitter group chat, WikiLeaks repeatedly disparaged Clinton's prospects as president, stating, among other things, "We believe it would be much better for the GOP to win. She's a bright, well-connected, sadistic sociopath. Hence, Hillary has greater freedom to start wars than the GOP, and has the will to do so." Publicly, Assange also argued against Clinton's candidacy based on his perception of her U.S. defense and national security views. In an August 31st interview with The New York Times, Assange referred to Clinton as, quote, "a demon that is going to put nooses around everyone's necks as soon as she wins the election," close quote. His statements echoed his March 2016 opposition in the private Twitter chat that, quote, HC, Hillary Clinton, in White House with her bloodlust, sick, and ambitions, sick, of empire with hawkish liberal interventionist appointees, close quote. On March 16, 2016, shortly after the GRU began its spearphishing campaign, WikiLeaks also began publishing a searchable archive of Clinton emails that had already been publicly released by the U.S. Department of State in response to a FOIA request. The archives included over 30,000 emails and attachments sent to or from Clinton between June 2010 and August 2014, but did not include any previously non-public information. According to one WikiLeaks associate, while part of the goal was to, quote, become the place to search for background on Hillary's plotting at the State Department, close quote, creating the archive would also allow WikiLeaks to, quote, be seen to be a resource/player in the U.S. election, because it, sick, may encourage people to send us even more important leaks. Coordination between the GRU and WikiLeaks on the release of hacked documents. In June 2016, following the GRU's initial release of stolen documents, WikiLeaks and the GRU personas exchanged the first of their many Twitter direct messages. These initial contacts eventually led to a coordinated release of documents on the eve of the 2016 Democratic National Convention, and later on the heels of the October 7th publication of the Access Hollywood tape. As described below, the GRU used both WikiLeaks and Guccifer 2.0 personas to communicate with WikiLeaks, using private Twitter direct messaging, as well as encrypted channels, possibly including the email of encrypted files in WikiLeaks' private communications system. The GRU transferred the hacked DNC materials to WikiLeaks electronically by July 18, 2016. As discussed infra, the GRU may have transferred the hacked John Podesta emails, either electronically or via a human courier, in or about mid-September, although the precise timing is unclear. The GRU's decision to use WikiLeaks to release documents was redacted. The IC assesses with high confidence that, quote, the GRU relayed material it acquired to WikiLeaks, close quote, and that Putin ordered the 2016 influence campaign against the U.S. presidential election. Redacted. However, the committee found significant evidence to suggest that, in the summer of 2016, WikiLeaks was knowingly collaborating with Russian government officials. Redacted. Communications and transfer of data related to the DNC release. On June 12, 2016, Julian Assange gave an interview on ITV, indicating publicly and for the first time that summer that WikiLeaks would be releasing materials on Hillary Clinton. During the interview, he claimed that WikiLeaks had, quote, emails related to Hillary Clinton which are pending publication, close quote. Days later, on June 14th, WikiLeaks reached out to WikiLeaks on Twitter direct message, quote, you announced your organization was preparing to publish more Hillary's emails. We are ready to support you. We have some sensitive information, too, in particular, her financial documents. Let's do it together. What do you think about publishing our info at the same moment? Thank you." Close quote. WikiLeaks did not respond on Twitter, but on June 15th, the day after the Washington Post published the first article detailing suspected Russian hacking of the DNC, the GRU's Guccifer 2.0 persona referenced WikiLeaks in its first blog post, claiming that it had given, quote, "thousands of files and emails," close quote, stolen from the DNC to WikiLeaks, which would, quote, "publish them soon," close quote. That day, Guccifer 2.0 emailed some of the stolen documents to two websites, Gawker and The Smoking Gun, and stated that the material sent to WikiLeaks included, quote, "election programs, strategies, plans against reps, financial reports, etc., close quote. As discussed below, the GRU transferred hacked materials to WikiLeaks on or about July 14, 2016, approximately 1 month after this June 15th blog post. The committee could not determine if the GRU also transferred hacked DNC materials prior to June 15th, as it represented in that blog post and as Assange's comments seem to suggest. Judging from the timing and content of numerous Twitter direct messages, it took several weeks for the GRU to transfer the hacked DNC materials to WikiLeaks, and the two parties appeared to encounter a number of technical difficulties in exchanging the materials. On June 22nd, after the Guccifer 2.0 persona had posted 3 additional sets of DNC documents to its WordPress site on June 18th, 20th, and 21st, WikiLeaks reached out to Guccifer 2.0 via Twitter. In a direct message, WikiLeaks asked Guccifer 2.0, quote, "Do you have secure communications?" close quote, and suggested that Guccifer 2.0, quote, "send any new material stolen from the DNC here for us to review, and it will have a much higher impact than what you were doing," close quote. The two accounts exchanged 7 additional messages that day over Twitter, including further discussion about establishing secure communications, such as through the use of a program for exchanging encrypted information known as GPG, and messages about the materials WikiLeaks claimed to possess already. The two exchanged 8 more messages on June 24th and June 27th. On June 24th, they discussed the use of the messaging service Jabber, and WikiLeaks provided instructions on how to send it an email with an encrypted message, including a key to encrypt the message. Later, on June 27th, Guccifer 2.0 wrote to WikiLeaks that it had, quote, "sent an email with a text message encrypted and an open key," close quote, and that it was, quote, "waiting for your response," close quote. On June 29th, the GRU used a Guccifer 2.0 email account to send a large encrypted file to a WikiLeaks email account, which appeared to be unsuccessful. Redacted. On July 6, 2016, WikiLeaks contacted Guccifer 2.0 again through a Twitter direct message and instructed, quote, "If you have anything Hillary-related, we want it in the next 2 days, preferable, because the DNC is approaching, and she will solidify Bernie supporters behind her after." Guccifer 2.0 responded, quote, "Okay, I see," close quote. WikiLeaks went on to explain, quote, "We think Trump has only a 25% chance of winning against Hillary, so conflict between Bernie and Hillary is interesting," close quote. WikiLeaks also wrote, quote, "We think the public interest is greatest now and in early October," close quote. The accounts exchanged a total of 82 messages that day alone. Although again the committee does not know the content of all of the communications, the Guccifer 2.0 persona messaged WikiLeaks that, among other things, it had sent, quote, "yesterday, an archive of about 1 gigabyte via website link," close quote, to which WikiLeaks later responded, quote, "Please don't make anything you send to us public. It's a lot of work to go through it, and the impact is severely reduced if we are not the first to publish it," close quote. On July 7th, the GRU asked WikiLeaks whether it had, quote, "another way besides email to receive large volumes of data, close quote, because a GRU email containing, quote, a check archive from another email box, close quote, had not been successfully delivered. The GRU sent WikiLeaks another 8 messages on July 11, 2016, including one message that the GRU had, quote, sent it via your submission, close quote. On July 14th, the GRU used the Guccifer 2.0 persona to email WikiLeaks an encrypted attachment with the file name, quote, wk-dnc-link1.txt.gpg, close quote. The subject of the email stated, quote, big archive, close quote, and the message body said, quote, a new attempt, close quote, suggesting that previous efforts to share the data through other channels had failed. On the same day, Guccifer 2.0 and WikiLeaks exchanged Twitter direct messages once again, during which the GRU sent WikiLeaks an encrypted file and instructions on opening it. Redacted. On July 18th, WikiLeaks confirmed receipt to the Guccifer 2.0 persona via Twitter, stating that it had, quote, the 1 gigabyte or so archive, close quote, and would be releasing the files, quote, this week, close quote. The accounts exchanged another 29 messages that day. Among other things, WikiLeaks also asked Guccifer 2.0 if it had, quote, any bigger data sets, close quote, and whether it had received, quote, our fast transfer details, close quote, and suggested that WikiLeaks had taken the step of, quote, arranging that server just for that purpose, presumably referring to the transfer of more data. The two entities then discussed the optimal timing for the GRU to transfer the remainder of its documents. Whereas WikiLeaks pushed for the data transfer to happen soon, the GRU seemed reluctant to do so before WikiLeaks had released the initial tranche of DNC information, advising, quote, I'll ponder it, close quote. The DNC emails were released 4 days later, on July 22, 2016, 3 days before the July 25th Democratic National Convention. WikiLeaks released 19,252 emails and 8,034 attachments obtained from 7 email accounts at the DNC. The emails covered the period of January 2015 through May 25, 2016, the first date that the GRU exfiltrated data from the DNC email server. The Trump campaign's awareness of and reaction to the release is discussed infra. After the July release, Assange left no doubt that his intention was to influence the election with the DNC information. For example, on July 29, 2016, Assange gave an interview to CNN and agreed that the release was timed for, quote, maximum impact, close quote, further stating, quote, that's when we knew that there would be maximum interest by readers, close quote. He also gave an interview to Democracy Now!, stating that the release was handled differently than normal, quote, because the pending Democratic National Convention, close quote.